Good evening. Welcome to the Dave Shove Midstream Reading Series. My name is Richard Terrill. It looks like we filled the place, or the readers filled the place. Wow. We've got, I see a couple chairs, the piano bench, and there's still one chair out in the out in the lobby, and they're on wheels. So if somebody wanders in and I'm sitting over here, maybe someone can direct some traffic. Unitarian provides us with this great space, so we thank them. We have a mailing list. Many of you are already on it, but if you're not and you'd like to be, your email address, I'll pass around the scratch pad and a pen. And we don't bug you. It's just once a month, and we don't use it for any other purposes. We're not selling anything. Although we could, but we're not. We have a website, and it is midstreamreadingseries.wordpress.com, and on it you'll see this schedule for the upcoming reading, who's reading, and the date. Also, all the past readings up to a certain number of years back are there, and we are recording tonight's reading, and it will be on the website when Paul gets around to putting it on the website, but you're all here anyway, so, but you can tell somebody else who might want to see it. And we want to thank Paul for doing the website and the sound and everything. Books are for sale over here and on the piano, if you're interested. I'm sure you're interested after the reading to chat with the poets and get a book. Bathrooms, if you go out the door, turn right, and turn right again. It's just past the library. That's important. And it sounds pretty good up here, but if you can't hear at any time, just raise your hand. Or, just say something. We're all friends. Nobody's going to be, angry about that. I'll read one poem. It's about bad poetry reading. And sorry, I have to sit there. Oh, there's one. Yeah. I should have put a coaster over my glass. That's what you do at the bar. It's about a bad poetry reading. Now, it's not about tonight's reading, and it's not about the reading that I hosted 4 months ago. Some of you were perhaps here, and I'll remind you that it was April, and 2 of the 4 readers a week later won the Minnesota Book Award. So we have very high standards, creme de la creme at Midstream. No, it's a poem based on James Wright. Depressed by a bad poetry reading, I walk toward an empty suburban ball field and invite the animals to join me. James Wright. Relieved, I let the spoken words fall from my mind like stones. I walk past the infield quietly. I do not want to disturb the muskrats. Their narrow wake in the pond beyond left field, a perfect enjambment in still water. An owl off rhymes with night. The squirrels rest hidden in the soft maples. They don't know if they're red or brown, only their hunger and sex. Even the shadows from the empty office buildings nearby are not cliches, carved by moonlight over the visitor's dugout. Ospreys are nesting atop the outfield lights. They intend nothing, make no meaning, advocate only for their young. The stars would hold the attention of few listeners. But one boreal chorus frog makes a spring sound among the cattails, once, twice, then a rest. The silence between is the poem. Here before I was, I listen, lovely, as long as it lasts. I'm losing my cherry. Sorry. I'm too old to sit on the floor. I've tried that. Cross-legged, forget it. Norita Dittberner-Jax' latest book is World Enough and Time, New and Selected Poems from Noden Press. She's the author of 6 previous collections of poetry, among them Crossing the Waters, also from Noden Press, which won the Midwest Book Award in Poetry. Norita has won awards and fellowships for her work, as well as nominations for the Pushcart Prize. Most recently, one of her poems, Numbering the Oaks, was one of a dozen chosen for a poet-artist collaboration from the Red Wing Arts Council. The artist, Matt Quinn, installed a large oak branch from his farm and hanging leaves over the poem. Norita taught English and creative writing for St. Paul's Schools, the Arts High School, and the Compass Writers in the Schools program. She is a native of St. Paul. Norita Dittberner-Jax.
Hello. Okay. I'm going to do this. These are new poems. Oh, I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy that I'm here. These are new poems. They're from the Civil Rights Tour that my children and I took in June, and I found that I had hit a vein. And for writers, we know that's just duck soup. So I haven't read these before. They're going to be some prose, but mostly poems. Civil Rights Tour. This is a small introduction. I was aware, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I was aware of the trouble around race from an early age. My sister, 10 years older, was going with a black man. Our family knew this man because he and my sister were the leads in a series of Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. The whole cast would come to our house and sing around the piano. But when she started dating him, everything changed. He waited at the curb for my sister to come out, which gave the neighbors on their porch a constant point of interest. When they married, the trouble in our family was over. They were an articulate couple and spoke often about interracial marriage and race issues. They had 4 wonderful children. When their family went on vacation, my husband and I cooked a big breakfast for them, a send-off for their road trip. It took me years to realize why they always went to Canada and why they always brought their own food and ate in parks. I followed the civil rights movement closely and have been an activist all my life. I am 82 now, and I wanted to make this trip while I am still able. My adult children came with me. To my great satisfaction, they took everything in themselves. They did not do it for Mom. We went to Birmingham, Montgomery, and Selma, all in Alabama. After Selma, we traveled to Atlanta, Georgia. Birmingham, Alabama, the 16th Street Baptist Church. Sunday best for church, the same one where the 4 girls died in the Ku Klux Klan bombing in 1963. 2 choirs, one of children singing out as we were in our pew, clapping to the spirituals, played on piano, saxophone, and drums. Youth Sunday and how they honor their young. I thought of Aretha and Whitney and James Baldwin, so many shaped by the Black church, the soul of the community. The preacher, too, in that great tradition, spoke with the clarity of water, in cadence so powerful that as he finished, he was singing. Afterward, I found the ladies' room in the basement, the old washroom. I looked in the mirror and knew that I was standing where they stood, laughing, jostling for position at the mirror before the bomb went off. From Duluth to Montgomery. I think probably a lot of you know that there were 3 circus workers that were lynched in 1920 in Duluth. And there's a big memorial in downtown Duluth. I was very interested in it. I studied it, and I went to the cemetery where they were finally buried. From Duluth to Montgomery. Red dots for the location of lynchings on a black map of the United States at the museum. In the South, the map is almost all red for the lynchings. But the Midwest is dark except for 1 red dot in Minnesota. Elias, Isaac, and Elmer, you didn't escape notice. Torn from jail and hung from trees in downtown Duluth, 1920. Nearby are the walls of jars, the soil from the graves of the lynchings, and everyone else, all the lynchings, floor to ceiling, walls of jars. What a big country. So many kinds of dirt. So many jars big enough for storing flour in a prairie kitchen. I loved finding your names, but the dirt is real. Diggers came and dug enough to fill a gallon jar for each of you. Careful not to spill and keep the dirt of 3 graves in a row. They found you. You were counted. Elias Clayton, Isaac McGee, Elmer Jackson. In Montgomery, we went to the parsonage where Martin Luther King and Coretta and several of their children were born while he was the pastor there. Parsonage. A corner house, modest in size, but a grace and symmetry in its lines. A spindled porch, but still the mark of the crater from the blast. A living room the whole width of the house, a fireplace, plenty of room for people coming to the parish potluck. There are dishes on the dining room table, a table large enough to plan a movement. The kitchen small and crowded, a wringer washer like my mother's, a pantry of open shelves. The hallway with a table holding the telephone to call him when the bomb went off. Their bedroom, the double bed and bassinet nearby. And in the back, Martin's study, worthy of a senior pastor, a commodious desk, walls of books, theology, but poetry too, and novels. Hemingway, Ralph Ellison. Afternoon light from the window, and the voices of children in the backyard, and Coretta on the back porch, calling them all to supper. The geography of Montgomery, Alabama. That first day, I saw the Alabama River from our room. I walked to see it past the train depot, across the tracks and onto the plaza. A place for picnics, for festivals, but everything quiet tonight. The river bends downstream and along its banks an intensity of green, trees without number. 2. The next day at the museum, hour after hour, every evil step along the way of slavery. By the time we leave, The river's history is clear. By the start of the Civil War, Montgomery had more slaves than any other city in the United States, 40,000. They came by river and by train. Montgomery, Alabama, a port city, the point of entry and a straight line to the town square where the auctions were held, and up the hill, the capital of Alabama. We leave Montgomery behind and drive to Selma and the Pettus Bridge, a short span over the Alabama River, still beautiful, but a conveyance deep in history. And this is a little bit of prose about Selma. Driving from Montgomery to Selma, rain all day. Instead of crossing the bridge in the deluge, we met Pastor Strong at Brown Chapel AMI Church, the center for the voting rights movement and the planning for the march. The pastor told us that this congregation had worked since the 1920s on voting rights for blacks. Over and over they tried to register. They were asked impossible question after question. In 1965, direct action seemed the only way. 3 times they tried to cross and head to Montgomery. Bloody Sunday, 600 marched from Brown Chapel, stopped at the bridge, beaten and gassed. Tried again Tuesday, 2,000 this time, but King asked them to pray on the bridge and turned them back from more bloodshed. They called that Turnaround Tuesday. I love that they had a name for it. A pause, a national call for supporters. March 21st, 8,000 marched the 50 miles to Montgomery, 5 days, and camped out at the farms of black farmers with Harry Belafonte singing A Night Under the Stars. Wouldn't you like to be there? 20,000 heard King's speech at the steps of the Capitol. The Bridge, a poem. The rain let up and we raced to the bridge, arching over the Alabama River, old, so old, a wreck, a symbol, let it stand. A man waved from the other side when we were walking up, all of us joyful on that rain-soaked day. On the way down, I stopped to talk to him. He said he's there every day. He wants skin in the game, like his uncle who walked the bridge in the 1965 march. He could see how thrilled I was and hugged me. Later on at the hotel, the receptionist said, "Did you see Daniel?" We had a lovely dinner and drinks at the supper club and slept a long sleep in Selma. And this is the last piece. Road trip to Atlanta. Eric, the driver, controls the music. His sisters, Jessica and Emily, both with injuries, know all the songs and they sing. Their mama does not. Each day we switch seats. When I'm up front, I put Eric's straw hat on the dash, and that seems a talisman. A road trip, all the elements, a small space, assigned seats, good spirits are going forward together like the trip to Duluth, the first year of the separation. Me, the driver, in the 1969 Pontiac Executive. When my brother saw that car, he said, where the hell did she get that car? It was big. The first car of my singledom, 3 teenagers, and no one came to harm on that in the Pontiac. No one comes to harm on this trip either. After we see Martin and Coretta's resting places, we hit the road back to the airport in Birmingham, then to Nashville and home. And just an afterthought, I watched the violence of the civil rights movement play out on television, as we did, didn't we? So crucial because it woke up the nation. I marched and sang, but nothing compares to crossing that bridge or seeing the auction block in Montgomery.
That was Norita Dittberner-Jax. Kirk Wilson's books include the poetry collection Songbox, the poetry chapbook The Early Word, the story collection Out of Season, and Unsolved, a nonfiction crime study. Kirk's poetry, fiction, and nonfiction can be found in Conjunctions, Idaho Review, New England Review, Poets.org, Poem a Day, the Yale Review, and other journals and anthologies. His awards include a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, the Elixir Press Fiction Award, the Trio House Press Trio Award, Editors Awards, and other prizes in all 3 genres, and 2 Pushcart nominations. Kirk lives in Austin, Texas, and in Minneapolis. His website is kirkwilsonbooks.com. Kirk Wilson.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you all for being here. I love this reading series, and I'm glad to be here. The poems I'm going to be reading tonight come from a collection in progress that's called Glass Delusion. This first one is called The Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, people went looking for the center of things. Sometimes it seemed they could almost see it. Sometimes it came at them from a crazy angle and it scared them. They made a fiction of the past and always woke up in the future. They were ashamed that not much had happened for them since Adam and Eve got evicted. They felt late for something and couldn't get over how much they didn't know. They had been the sweetest babies once and learned the language, but God owned all the quiet spots, so they never learned the silence. They had visions, but didn't see the data centers and the ice raids coming. The voices they heard in the air were not in the language they had learned. They felt they were being followed. This is called folding the flag. It is a punishment. The 2 of us caught gambling for lunch money with dice I brought from home, draw down the flag each afternoon and fold it in the way we have been taught, with solemn ceremony, in tight triangulation, like the folds of prayer. My life is on the lookout in that schoolyard for my return, just as souls wait for the moment they are free to step out from the trees. I think if I owned nothing, not even a body, I would fly there, start over, and fall back in love with the world. I can't see his face, the boy who stands in front of me. Our eyes are on our hands and on the care we take toward meaning. I can't feel the season, but time has me by the collar, and time I know well. This is before the laws were stolen, Lincoln died again in his marble chair, and all the angels looked the other way. The boy and I, where we stand in our moment, take few chances. We fold the flag and time folds us. And if our country ruins the landscape of our hearts, we are unlikely to take to the rooftops and wake the dissident spirits. I have no evidence, but they say Daddy, who lived in a world none of us knew, was a gambler. He held things so close it's hearsay, and even those who said it have been transmuted into rumors. What I want is not often clear, but I know I want this to be true. I want to love his wild abandon, to applaud each time he bets a room of heavies with 38s in their pockets. He can walk off through a wall and come back through the ceiling. I want to find my way to him in open spaces, join him there, to touch the brass grommets on the flag and feel the perfect holes like missing planets. I will report the way the trees are restless in a novel kind of wind, how they cast off leaves with bright markers like small ships traveling together. I will propose that we too sail out and gamble it all in the streets. My poems don't usually have dedications, but this one does. This is a poem called Glass Delusion. For Renee Good, Alex Pretty, Ruben Ray Martinez, Silverio Rilegas Gonzalez, Lorenzo Salgado Aroja, and Joan Sebastian Guerrero. There's a madness you can catch called glass delusion. Books say it started in the Middle Ages. It's knowing for sure you're made of glass, and it may be specific to the human species. If I could ask the birds about it, I would. Maybe that's why they're dying out. The French King Charles VI had it bad. He wore iron rods in his clothes and wouldn't let anyone touch him so he wouldn't crack. Other people have to have soft pillows in their chairs for obvious reasons. There was one Bavarian princess who knew she carried a glass grand piano inside her. She had to turn sideways, going through doors. The alchemist Johann Becker claimed he could turn cadavers into glass so we could keep lovely vases made of our ancestors on shelves. Glass made of humans, Becker said, is milky with a slight tinge of narcissus. A glass human would have a resonant frequency like a wine glass and would shatter if you could hit just the right note. Maybe that's what our own regime is going for with those puny squeaks it keeps repeating like an engine losing oil. Not long ago, my heart failed, and when I walk its streets, I feel glass crunching under my shoes. Maybe it broke against the iron rods the ice goons stitch into their clothes and press against us underneath their guns. In our delusion, there is the immanence of glass and the obligation to attend the fine grain of its clarity, as, for example, the glass in the ocean-laid cables that keep our corporate dream alive, and our view unhindered of the glass house of the regime where we are murdered in the street for the crime of looking in. My wife Donna and I have a friend who lives in New York City, and last winter she sent us some pictures she'd taken of a display in a department store where the mannequins were wearing these greatcoats that looked just like the greatcoats the Nazi soldiers wore in those historical photographs that we've seen. And not long after that, I saw a photograph of our current First Lady in exactly that same coat. You saw that too. So that all stumbled into a poem. It's called Real Life. In the fashion districts now we see the fascist outfits in the window panes. The wind is stuck outside and it holds grudges. It body slams against the gold facades, producing fearful spasms in the mannequins. Just look at the stones piled up on one another like they know it all. Just look at those black holes we found under the bed. We're all imposters here, no worries. Nobody gets to understand how much these words want off the page. Surely, it's the ocean's outrage that we feel. Surely, we'll crush the demons and dance on their nerves. Surely their souls are made of glass and will leave in small boats. Surely our parents wait inside us, willing to try again. This is called Royal Enfield. For those who don't know motorcycles, Royal Enfield is an old English bike, and it's now made in India. They got all the specs and so forth and the rights to make the bikes, and they do now. There are only two ways to live, Einstein said, believing there are no miracles or that there's nothing but. In Rajasthan, people pray at the roadside to a Royal Enfield 350 because the bike refused to die the day its owner did in a crash against a tree. Cops took it to the station, but it returned to the scene on its own. They emptied its gas tank and took off its chain. It could live without uncertainty and showed up again at the tree. The rider's people sold it to a man in Gujarat, but it kept coming back. It stands now in a glass shrine 50 kilometers from Jodhpur, where petitioners buy shots of booze, sacred thread, and flowers in shops across the road and leave them in exchange for safe travels. In this story, I want the way sunlight touches the leaves at the roadside, knowing they hide shadows inside them. Some of the shadows are serene, others are anxious. I want to know what else is happening but miracles in all those steps I take. Like Augustine, I walk behind whatever's leading me. I cannot see what kind of face I make. This is called How to Be Nobody. Sometimes you have to decide if that picture of light on the wall that jumps like a silent movie each time a branch dips in the wind or a car shakes up the surface chop is an accident not waiting to happen, or a random broadcast to everyone, or a message for you in particular. No doubt this show will soon be over, and everything that has just ended will still have to roll from its new, but in some distant way, familiar crib, and breathe, and wonder who is breathing, and stars will still be born before the dead stars stop throwing light upon us. The poems will not say what you want. The powerful will still be teeny flora in the gut. And on the rail, the mockingbird will feel an urgent need to turn an ear to the horizon and only hear the chatter in the grasses permitted to grow tall, and the current moving in the spilled milk along the sidewalk. This is called Application in Springtime. Recently, I asked the ground if it will still accept me. We have done a grievous hurt unto a planet, friends, so what do we know? The ground speaks in waves I cannot hear. It offers upstart vines, clover promising to bloom, rocks with elements of cloud. Its look is far away, I have been traveling toward it a long time, thinking I see something in it that reflects me as a mirror I desperately need. Possibly it knows why we cry behind the wheel. Possibly it could arrange an Eden somewhere in its womb, where we might heal by feeling wind move in the trees. Dogs I love have crossed this ground, hungry foxes too. I worry that we are not made for peace or for a place where visibility is zero and everything we see is just the same as what we didn't. One more poem, this is a short one, it's called Falls. Sorry, but it's time to turn around. Our devices only read the almanac to one another, and our cars are driving themselves crazy. We could meet under the falls, but I should warn you, we've been bounced from paradise. Last time I saw the waiting room, the citizens were running every which way. There are still nice leaves and bones at the roadside, still invisibles who want to live some other life, knocking. So, if you can find a paper map, let's have it. Thank you.
The parking lot. It's not mine. Oh, that's great. Well, apparently, if you're driving a blue Toyota and parked in the parking lot, somebody can't get out. So, if the shoe fits, I don't know. I have a Toyota, but wait, it's silver. Okay. Sorry. That was Kirk. Yeah. Richard Robbins received his MFA at the University of Montana, where he studied with Richard Hugo and Madeline DeFries. He has published 7 books of poems, most recently The Oratory of All Souls, which Links House Press released in 2023. He has received awards from the Loft, the Minnesota State Arts Board, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Poetry Society of America. From 1986 to 2014, Robbins directed the Good Thunder reading series at Minnesota State University Mankato, where in 2021 he retired from the creative writing program. His website is richardrobbinspoems.com. Rick Robbins.
I just want to let everybody know that I have a 15-year-old book and my publisher went out of business and unloaded a bunch of copies on me, so this is free for anybody. And if you buy a book from anybody, you'll get the coveted What Would Walt Whitman Do? From anybody, so buy it. So I have some recent poems, and I have some new poems, and I have some very new poems. This first one is very new. It's called Witnesses. 2 men sit on a bench deep in the great city park, talking about the world inside this one. They can see beyond the vast lawn, over the rounded tops of centuries-old oaks, the jagged line of buildings clawing upward. A merge of swallows writes a script across the sky. The world inside this one is like the bottom of the sea, a man says, darker than morning and without one solid edge. The world inside this one is the message birds leave, says the other, scrutable but invisible, gesture more than dance, more than a world itself. Once a week, the bench is theirs. The buildings never change. The trees respond to weather, to season. The birds, it doesn't matter. The men talk about the world inside this one, week after week, arguing, drawing circles with their disagreeing hands. A cloud of witnesses grows large behind them. So I'll read a few from my most recent book. There's a whole series of poems in the middle of the book about some paintings by the really terrific English painter Stanley Spencer. But I'm just going to read a couple poems from elsewhere in the book. Some of them have to do with just looking at people doing ordinary things, and this is one of them. Looking for the man in the field. Would the man stand at the end of a knife, the turned up head of cauliflower? Would the man wipe sweat from his face, fold a red handkerchief for his pocket? Would he sit in the dust and shade beside his truck and laugh between bites of a sandwich? Would he whistle as long as the tractor starts? Would the man say a rosary for each row of grapes or lettuce? Would the man curse or befriend the sun? Would he become the movement of an arm, a leg? Would he think himself some other place, on a front walk where Marisol, Peter, or even Hector the good dog would greet him after the light had failed? Would the man burn to nothing like morning fog in the rose? Would the man leave his shadow there? Would he walk back out of darkness like a ghost or like dawn? Would any word he is saying come from the dark, the light, or the vine? Did it find the man in the field? Did he and the field move inside each other until the word found his tongue? Someone else's map. Who would put the first bird, a Steller's jay, on their map? Or the first fern, swiveling now on its stalk, not in wind, but in a wave of heat, rising from the spot where first sun fell across the frost? Who would absolve the first offender, no matter her non-intent, no matter any later generosity? Listen, when someone draws the map of his grief, he includes white spaces that are never only loss. A herd of elk passes through this part of the woods every night, never detected. They are crossing the white space now. Listen, you have to roll your own grief inside the leather bundle and stow it on the mud porch. It will stay warm there, even though you may want it outdoors hanging in the light and cold air. You have to count everything inside the bundle and leave it right there on the wooden slats next to the shoes. It made you afraid once to walk away. Who would leave his house and walk the thin highway a mile north to that village? Who would stop at every front gate, blessing it, even if the house had been empty for years, the family all dead, its fortune played out, even if it's only a set for some historical reenactment? Who would leave himself behind? Even though that, all along, made the color for the map, the direction of its rivers, configured it as in ancient times with south at the top, that place of community and good weather. Who would cross the white behind the first things of this world, only to discover weightlessness and the light of animals? Question after questioning, question after question, a string of tracks in the dark across windfall and duff. Here's some newer poems that aren't in this book. I love Garcia Lorca, and this is my homage to him. It's called Bad Heart. You wake up in the garden of bad hearts and wonder how you got there. The black mule has wandered off to graze. When you study your knuckles, you find evidence of a struggle, but the cardinal in the branches does not tell, nor the sleeping stone that only moments ago sang to your ears. Your grandmother foretold this. In the bright kitchen in Los Angeles, no one else moving in the house, she centered the marmalade dollop at the bottom of your bowl, covered it with hot oatmeal, splashed some cream on the surface, set it down. Don't rush, she said. She meant, don't wake up unprepared on the other side of light, where the insides of human beings explode without their knowing among the flowers. Two cyclists across the street set out with laughter. They find their balance quickly. It takes them no time to find the crushed limestone path, the old railroad spur, leading miles away from their town. Through a tunnel of basswood and oak, grief proclaims without fanfare, this tunnel of trees is a mouth, you men, 2 zeros of breath. On a lighter note, there's this grocery store that I like to go to, and like a lot of grocery stores, they have a little coffee counter at front, and if you wanna, before you do your grocery shopping, or after you do it, you buy some coffee and a donut or something and sit out in the sun. So these guys go to that place every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I've only known this because, I shop there at Tuesday at 2 o'clock and see them there, but it's every week in the dry season. 2 older gentlemen and 2 retired greyhounds. Each man in a chair, each dog on a cushion, a table between the pairs, in the sun on the patio of the upscale grocery. 2 coffees, 2 cookies, chewy biscuit for each dog. Their great labors done. Occasionally, pain in the joints, addressed by change of position in chair or on cushion. Sighs, no complaints, friends for life, each one. They ran for someone else's sport, all 4 of them. No complaints now in this wide, partly cloudy world of warm sun, October, north enough on anyone's map to promise rain someday, snow and wind, but not today. Their great labors done, they have human beings, other dogs passing in their separate hurries, those paying no mind to 4 inconspicuous spirits who hold the scene in place. I wrote that poem in October, and it took me until like March before I showed him the poem. And they're strangers, and I didn't know anything about them. I made a lot of assumptions about them. And they were a little bit, they weren't weirded out, but they said thank you. And then we went on. If any of you started writing poetry in the 70s, I think you'll get what this is talking about. It's called the new poetry. As young smartasses, we used to think you had to be 80 before you earned the right to say love or God in a poem. Before then, you needed to build your lines 1 wheelbarrow, 1 crow, 1 wet dark bough at a time. The things of the day bore into you: a simple bread, smoked salmon, a jazz solo, onshore breeze from the west. Year after year, your lungs and heart took in the clean air down out of Canada, the sight of gray whales swimming north to south, hand of your son wrapped around a finger, the delicate fall of your wife's hair. The body could never contain too much of the world. We'd never know love or God unless one or the other sang to us through some one thing made flesh. It never occurred to us we'd been kneeling at another altar all along, riding the various roads toward mystery and silence. Our poems filled with objects, even as they pointed toward invisible places where senses and language fail. By then, we found ourselves old. We found ourselves prepared for the next apprenticeship. So I have about 2 more poems. I'll tell you, I'll read it. This is a real short poem, and I think I'll be able to get these 3 in, but this is called Up a Little Lake in the Eastern Sierra. That time I almost shoot a dog, I've been daydreaming, flicking the safety on and off as the dawn chill gives way to rising desert heat. The labs have gone ahead to flush the sage of pheasant. When my gun fires, the whole canyon hears and shouts back at name. Returning, the dogs weave among us, I am certain, for comfort, while my shame lies across the scrub, the way incoming fog lies across our lawns years later, yours and mine, way up on our hill over the sea. And as I was thinking about that kind of moment, I was 8th grade, I was really embarrassed. I remembered that my grandfather, who took me hunting, had his own moment of shame. So this is a sequel. The Los Angeles Basin. That time you back over the tricycle in your friend's driveway, the crush of metal registers your dread. The silence after registers your shame. I stay in the car as you work things out with our host. Apologies, some cash for a replacement. And we sit in that quiet the whole highway south out of Little Lake, where, with the man and you, we had hunted pheasant that morning in a landscape of basalt and sage, lunched on sandwiches he himself had made for us before we returned to canyons leading nowhere, and where, in my boredom, fiddling with the safety, my gun let off a blast into scrub that could have killed a dog. How we can stew in our shame, still after 60 years, you even after death, or so it seems that way to the living. We're still here in the car, speeding down thin blacktop through Mojave, Lancaster, Palmdale, over the pass to where the great lights swallow us in white, forgive us in ways we haven't yet found words for. Lights absolving each venial sin before we pull to the curb in front of our house, enter again into the arms of love. And I do have time for this last poem. This is called Friday Evening in the 1970s. My grandparents and mother liked their whiskeys and water before dinner. My mother sometimes one more after eating, nursing the extra on the sofa near the TV while she smoked and crocheted the next Afghan until bedtime. I've seen her favorite pattern on the back of a chair, foot of a bed in other homes, 2 films, always brown and orange, geometric, the earth tones of a certain decade, when the family watched the same shows until the old ones shuffled off to bed, and she and I, or anyone left, tried to last through the late night news to the talk shows, where Carson or Cavett skewered showbiz or Washington or both, but not this small moment, too small for them to see from where they sat on the other side of a lens, this microcosm of care, delicate days before this or that tragedy of the body entered our fabric. We were like everyone else, of course. We realized that finally, first with the old ones, then one by one with us. At times, it drove us to rise, go outside in gratitude to toast the end of day. Other times, it led us alone to our separate rooms, to each quiet corner where we might weep or shudder, or at least once, if we were lucky, claim the miracle joy just beneath the breaking.
That was Richard Robbins.
There's a Toyota that's blocking the way in the parking lot.
That's not your.
Isn't that one?
Yep, I guess it's a blue Prius and it's blocking me in, and it'll be like a half hour.
Oh, Toyota Prius.
Well, I think it might be mine, but mine was parked in a regular spot.
Yes, but, I'm blocked in, I can't get out, you're parked too close to my car.
Is it PEJ 644? Is that your, that could be it? There you go.
Mystery solved. Unity Unitarian gives us this room for free, but we like to express our gratitude. So if you have a little cash, we'd like to support their work, and I'll just pass this around. After tonight's reading, we have books for sale. If you buy a book, you get a free bumper sticker, I think, while they last. And so please peruse the books, chat with the poets, and if you're into it, we'll be at Sweeney's after the reading. If it's dry and we can get a table, we'll be out on the patio, lovely patio. If not, there's a room in the back. Sometimes we can commandeer a big table and you can actually hear, which is a bonus. If not, then I ask them if we can go into the part of the bar that's closed. And you just have to get your own drinks, but we don't care. So see you at Sweeney's if you're interested. Anna George Meek has published in dozens of national journals such as Poetry, the Kenyon Review, and the Yale Review. She is the recipient of a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship and 2 Minnesota State Arts Board grants. Her work has appeared on the Writer's Almanac and has been selected multiple times for both Verse Daily and Poetry Daily. Her first book, Acts of Contortion, won the Brittingham Prize in Poetry. Her chapbook, Engraved, won the Snowbound chapbook competition. Her second full-length book, The Genome Rhapsodies, won the Richard Snyder Prize from Ashland Press. Anna Meek lives with her husband and daughter in the Twin Cities, where she sings professionally and is a professor of English. Anna George Meek.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, all of you. This is living poetry, right? I love how many poets tonight have read from a work that's current, that's recent. This is the living art, and you are as well. Hello, I'm Anna, and I'll be your closing act for the evening. All of my poems are very new. They're very recent. They're from a manuscript called Polis. You might remember something happening in the cities around the end of last year and this January. It feels both very long ago and very recent. So all of these poems are both about the occupation of our cities by federal forces, kidnapping our neighbors, and the events that in some ways taught us how to react to that, the 2020 murder of George Floyd and our reactions to that. The first poem is fairly short. It is titled after a Buddhist saying, "After ecstasy, the laundry." After 50,000 at the protest march, my dirty dishes. After shouting beside my neighbors, a box of cereal from Walgreens. After whistle training, the Netflix bill. After students tell me privately, one after the other, that they don't know how long they can keep leaving the house to come to class. They need to stay with their mother, their little brother. They don't know if their driver's license will be enough. It won't. The garbage collectors yell to me over the snowy fence, "Shovel out the bins, lady!" After the poet is shot, my dog throws up in the bed. After I walk out of the store, the face above the flak jacket weighed down with a Glock and a pepper spray and riot baton sees my woman whiteness and smiles at the bags of kitty litter in my arms. My house is situated, it's about 2.5, 3 blocks from the precinct where Derek Chauvin was an officer, and that was where the uprising really was centered, and the burning buildings were sort of on either block from my house, and our deck was filled with ash after the 2 nights of burnings, and we spent many hours in that intersection yelling at the officers on the roof who, with my 16-year-old, and I saw an officer point a gun, a tear gas gun, directly at Sarah. And if I wasn't already activated then, I certainly was at that moment. There was a pawn shop right there that also burned. And gossip had always had it in the neighborhood that there was a mummy in the pawn shop. And I thought about the mummy after the pawn shop burned. This is called Love Poem to the Little Mummy in the Pawn Shop. And in the uprising, it burned too. The storefront of guitars, watches, TVs, failed wedding china, and your face, dear boy, in there somewhere, maybe, before the wealth of us poured into the streets. At least gossip said you lay in there for sale, wrapped and ancient, stolen from your kingdom young, perhaps a priest. Brown organs in canopic jars long left behind. Sweet boy, I ache a vacant lot for you. The story of you among us, hid in the store's clutter of nouns, and outside the streets verbed. What is your ancient tongue, little one? What would you call a Molotov cocktail? Beyond glass, we flickered and shouted our country's name, our municipal body, come to life, in motion, squares of city around you. We tried to protect you whole in our graffiti veins, plundered pulse. But in the morning, you were gone, ashes. Someone's son, someone's first kiss, for so long, defying 1,000 years' noble purpose, tucked in, heart cave loved. I know we are running long on time, so I'm just going to read 3 more poems. So
We got time.
I just promised them only 3 more poems, so I can't lose. 10! Who's with me? I need to tell you that there are 2 words, they're homophones at the end of the poem, morning without a U and morning with a U. So just know that the second morning has a U. Sanctuary cities. In your city, perhaps, where I have been a stranger, fog pulls back from the bridges like sheets from a sleeper. The city rolls tenderly to the other hip, wounded Baywater skin, having absorbed the night in dreams. Elsewhere, beignet shops open their doors, aromas whisper of all the people safe in the confectioner's tender wish, a sweet dusting. Another city's cinnamon heart will not disclose to you its secret joys within. Canela, canella, dulcini, cinnamon, delicious languages it tells only to those in love. In a desert city, city older than maps, cradled in canyon and red rock, it will not give up its ancient and unwritten names for sandstone, shale. Even bricked up souls there recall that all are allowed into the dust. But you should see it, my city. Already the geese are flying back from another country. Water frees itself from the frozen lakes, whose booming throats sing melt to channel to mouth, through turbines whose transformers move electrons into power, the way vocal cords transfigure power into hum, hymn, hidden cries. Beloveds ripped from the city's tired chest. That sound. If you keep 3 bright songbirds, and one day shoot pellets into the warm breasts of 2, the pain is the songbird that survives. Cities listen to keep it safe. Cities elsewhere hum, We rise, each in our own way. We wake and send ourselves out toward morning. Morning. So, perhaps you live in the core cities, perhaps you live in Minneapolis, perhaps you live in the greater Longfellow neighborhood where we were inundated at that time, well, actually both in 2020 and in 2026 with helicopters. They felt, and the sound, yeah, I see many faces, right? You know those helicopters, and their presence was incredibly oppressive. So there are 9 poems in this collection, Polis, called Helicopters. And this is one of them. I feel also that I need to show you what it looks like, because this is not a regular, what is a regular poem? But this is this. Helicopters. Drone. Someone is learning to play. Drone, drone. Saxophone. Through the open window of the apartment. Drone, drone. Building. And the major scales climb up to the open drone. Summer sky. Blade, blade. A child, I think. Blade, blade, blade. Louder. Competing with the noisy sun. Glinting. Blade, 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 blade. Overhead. Now. Somewhere over the rainbow. Blade, blade, blade. Rattle, rattle, rattle. The panes shaking and dancing in their jams. Rattle, rattle, rattle. Thunder, thunder. But she plays up-tempo. Thunder, thunder, thunder. They are watching us. Her eye of the tiger so loud it will break. Thunder, thunder, rattle. That poor horn. That tremendous blade, blade, blade horn. And I am singing my fool head off. Blade, blade to her beginning band favorites. Drone. When she stops, suddenly drone. My last high note hanging in the air. And she is laughing. It's such a great moment. We live on a block that's divided in half, the native English speakers who don't speak any other language necessarily fluently, and people who don't speak English fluently. We're always nodding and smiling to one another, and she was in one of those apartment buildings, and that was just a tremendous dialogue that we had. All right, for the last poem, you perhaps know who King Pyrrhus was, from which we get the phrase, Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhus was the king of a small area in Greece, and he and his legions fought back the Roman Empire, but at such great cost that he is said to have said, if we have another victory against Rome like this, we'll be lost. From which we get Pyrrhic victory, that phrase that means, you know, a victory that's as good as a loss. Yeah. After defeating the Romans, King Pyrrhus considers what will happen next. Minneapolis, 2026. We sing about sunshine too much. Blue sky hemorrhages all over the city. Light comes out of the bodies or the spaces they leave behind. It pools in the melting snow. Our phalanx of singers in 4-part harmony lost many altos and tenors along the march. Our best soprano. Our very resolution is depleted. The elephants are riderless. Now, hope and elegy flash on either side of each sword plunged into battlefield soil. And I have no doubt the Romans will return. I have loved my legions. And though this is no heroic story, I think of our meals by the frozen lakes, the concerts and festivals, pennants and candles in the streets, the canned goods, the lawyers and leafleteers, our wicked humor on night watches, how we embraced on our patrols by homes and apartments, so many of which now are empty. And I reflect on what other nations' children will pass on of all that happened here. Thank you.
Anna George Meek. A round of applause for all four of our readers tonight. Norita, Dittberner-Jax, Kirk Wilson, Richard Robbins, Anna George Meek. And next month, Thursday, September 10th, our host Tracy Youngblom welcomes Lester Batiste, Sharon Schmielars, Lon Otto, and Marie Rickmeyer. Hope that you can join us then. Thanks for coming. Books for sale, poets to meet. Thank you so much.